How to put a basement in a pole barn. This is my garage. It's basically a pole barn. It's pole construction. I don't have metal siding. I have vinyl siding, but it's basically the same as a pole barn. I built this first years ago, 30 years ago, and then I saved up my money, bought some lumber, and I built my house 25 years ago, or almost 25 years ago. And it's on a block basement. And this was the mud room, mechanical room, basement connecting the garage to my house. So that's my my garage floor. I needed more storage area, and I didn't have room or the money to build a pole barn. So what I'm doing is I'm putting a basement in my pole barn. And there is the ramp that I use to bring my Kubota backhoe in and out, haul out dirt, and there's some of the dirt there. All right, the corner of the pole barn is propped up. I use a 6x6 on the ground. I dug out the topsoil, put it on clay. I have clay. So that's like 16 feet across the ground. And I have 3 4x6s. But if you can use a 6x6, it's better. I just happen to have 4x6s. And this one at the corner has a stress fracture going all the way up. So it's cracked. So I decided I better get busy doing the wall for my basement. And I have the footing here. The footing is 16 inches wide, 10 inches deep. And I used some of the clay as the form when I did the form for that footing. And I used 2x4s on top. I'll show you over here. I dug it out, the footing out in the clay. And I used 2x4s to level it. So some of the concrete sticks out a little bit underneath the 2x4. But I didn't want to spend a lot of money on lumber. And over here there's going to be a tile, plastic tile and drain field stones. But basically a 16-inch wide footing. And the block is 8 inches wide. So you have basically 4 inches on each side. And I have 3 runs of 1/2-inch rebar all the way around. And I hammer drilled a hole into the existing footing on my house and ran that rebar in about 4 inches or so. And then I took a 5-foot piece of 1/2-inch rebar, bend a 90 in it, and I connected it to the rebar that was in the concrete. And I poured that footing, and I waited a week or so, and then I started laying blocks. Now they have a metal, well, black, I don't know what they call it, but every other course you put metal in there. But I couldn't get that from Menards. I bought everything from Menards. So I'm using 3/8 rebar, and I'm connecting it here. I'm going to fill this core. Every 4 foot I have a 1/2-inch rebar. I'm going to fill that core full of concrete, and that will give some structural integrity. My electrical service was moved. It used to be over there, and I moved it and I stuck it here. So the goal is to get an 8-foot concrete wall, which is 12 courses. And I intentionally cut these posts at ground level. When I get closer, when I get my concrete wall up here and I get closer, I'll cut off a little bit each time. And then when I get the last course, I'm going to measure it exactly and I'm going to cut it. And then I'm going to put a treated 2x8. I'm going to put a 5-foot piece of rebar with a welded threaded bolt on top sticking in the concrete that I pour. And that treated 2x8 is going to be, I'm going to drill out the holes, and I'm going to put a washer and a nut, and I'm going to bolt that treated 2x8 to the concrete wall. And this wall here, I may have to jack it up a little bit, but I'm going to set this wall on this wall. And then there's going to be, at the level of my house, there's going to be a floor in here, and rather than doing the floor all the way to the outside of the blocks, this wall here is going to sit on the blocks, and it's going to give me about a couple of inches, and I'm going to have a header going across here underneath the floor joist, and there's going to be one floor joist here on the edge up against the garage wall. So the garage wall is not going to actually sit on the floor joist. The garage wall is going to sit on the concrete blocks, and the floor joist is going to be nailed or screwed to the garage wall. And then the stairway is going to be over here. See, this is the tar for your sealing, for when you seal concrete. I took a needle gun scaler and I scaled that all off, so that's all concrete. So when I put my blocks up against this, it has something to bond to. And these holes are for the rebar. Somewhere around here, I'm going to stop right here, and then about 3-4 feet, I'm going to start the wall, and there's going to be a stairway here. And I'm going to build a form and everything. I've done this before. When I built my house, I had a stairway from the garage floor to the basement. You build your forms and you dig out the dirt and you pour the concrete and you pour it in, and you end up with a concrete form. And then you build your stairway in here. The floor, I'm going to have 4-inch tile down here and drain field stones, and this is going to be about this level here. And I'm going to put in 2 inches of insulation board, and I'm going to use fiberglass rebar. I'm going to make a grid. I'm going to fasten PEX tubing to it for heated floor if I ever want to heat this room. So the concrete floor is going to be up right around here, 3.5 inches, 4 inches. So that's basically it. And then they have I use a line when I'm running blocks. It rained this morning after I did these. You fasten the line to these. I don't know what they're exactly called, but one on each end. And this line would be like that. And you take a level and you level your blocks, and then you plumb your wall and take a hammer, use the wood end, pound them down. Never use metal against concrete because there's a good chance you're going to crack it. And then here's my striking tool. You want to strike the grooves. And here's this 3-inch rebar. I got 4 blocks to put in here. And you see how I tied it together. Every other course is going to get the rebar. And then I tied this together. And then, like I said, there'd be a 5-inch piece of rebar I'm going to stick in the hole as I pour concrete. And then, because I built out in the space between the garage and the house, probably next year, won't do it during winter, I'm going to be taking the mudroom roof off, and I'm going to be building trusses and build walls and put trusses. And then the garage is 30 years old and it needs a new roof anyway, so put the trusses up, move the windows, put the roof sheeting on, and then I have a room here, 2 rooms, the basement and then an upper room. So basically that's it. I took a pole barn and I made more space out of it. I doubled the floor space. My pole barn was 10.5 feet to begin with, from concrete floor to the trusses. So that helped a little bit. They gave me a little extra room. If you have an 8-foot pole barn, you may have difficulty getting 2 floors in. And then if you're wondering about this ladder, I used the rebar here and I put the blocks on it and I slid them down versus carrying them down. Okay? Thank you.